Good afternoon, everyone. So amazing to see so many of you here. Please take your seats. You are allowed to take your drinks with you. It's not a theater. You're encouraged to take your drinks with you. I want to welcome you to the wrap-up of the year 2022. Someone on social media shared this event and said that this is most awaited fintech event of the year, and I'm not going to argue with that, even though some people may. But this morning we actually had to extend the Eventbrite registration number, and I'm very happy about it that it's sold out, even though we're not selling it. So yet again, very happy to see so many of you here, and welcome. And it's obvious that the fintech ecosystem is very much alive and kicking. And with that, I would like to kick off this event by inviting our very special guest to say the welcome. So please, everyone, welcome the Vice Minister at Ministry of Finance of the Republic of Lithuania. I had to read that. Vaida Markevičienė, please welcome to say the welcome.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here, and it's actually even have the Christmassy feeling. Not just because of the Christmas tree, but because we have this rare opportunity to gather all our fintech community here. And I can say that the feeling is that I'm here among friends and among family. And it's not just because we have so many contacts, we spend so much time together discussing about things that matter, but being among friends and family means that we can also talk openly about problems, difficulties, and share the experiences that maybe are not pleasant, but are crucial for growth. So I would like to start with what we did on our side. And for me, coming from the Ministry of Finance, this year was about what's next. Everyone was asking what's next for fintech, what's next for green finance, what's next for capital markets, what's next for financial literacy, what is happening in the European Union with legislation. So a lot of things are about what's next. So very briefly, I will mention what is coming up. So probably for you, the most important thing is fintech guidelines for the coming next 5 years. It was a very busy year with surveys, debates, discussions. They are almost ready. We are going to serve them to you for final reading in the coming weeks. And it will show what we see, what will be the development of fintech sector so that it will grow in quality, that we would be the center of fintech in terms of quality, in terms of innovation, that we would stay open, not only relevant, but actually on top of innovation, and how to make sure that we keep all the risks in check. So these guidelines are coming. Another really pressing matter is green finance, because we all know, and this year showed especially, that green transition is the key. We know that neither public funds will be enough for that. We have to accumulate private and public funds together to speed up our green transition. And for that, we are doing something similar to what we did with fintech. We need ecosystem. We need all the community coming together from private sector, from public sector, and making sure that we have enough on offer in financial instruments, that we have all the necessary data, and that we would know the goals that we all together need to achieve. But green finance is not possible without well-functioning capital markets. And here we, together with the Bank of Lithuania, just very recently, last week, kicked off the Capital Markets Development Plan that also brings together a community of institutions, the central bank, the investors, to make sure that we do have advanced capital markets. For now, it's something that we are not proud of. We are not afraid to say, but hopefully after the implementation of the 3 years plan, it will be an area where we can proudly say that we made big progress. Last thing is all these things like fintech, green finance, capital markets, they wouldn't work if our society is financially illiterate. And when we talk about society, of course, it's like students, society, like broad public, but also our small and medium enterprises. So in the coming months, we are intending to present the financial literacy increasement plan, and we are already working on it with also some representatives from your community. Talking about the EU-level initiatives, there are also some buzzwords that are settling into your realities. Mika and Dora, I would allow myself in this Christmassy feelings to say that Mika and Dora are not some cartoon names of a Christmas movie. They actually very serious EU documents. Dora about security, cybersecurity in our market. It's almost here, and it will set new standards and add safety to our market. We also have MiCA market and crypto assets European document that would kind of bring the new reality also into the sector, because we know that crypto is here. So what we need to make sure that investors are safe, and that there are ways to innovate and use those instruments for whatever innovations they can bring. And of course, AML legislative package is almost here. And of course, AML package is about safety and security, but I look at it from the other perspective. It's also about integrating of EU financial markets, because when we have same rules, we have level playing field, it's easier to scale the operations. And of course, that package has an AMLA, new European agency in it. And we, as Capital Vilnius, we are very committed to host it, and we put all the political efforts so that we can bring this European agency here to Vilnius. We have the capacity, we have the know-how, so hopefully it will be here in Vilnius. So having said that, I came to an end of my speech. It was very brief, and I just covered in very short the elements that probably you are all aware of and working it, but I think the end of the year and the annual wrap-up is all about that. So I wish you a very nice event, a very productive event. And as I said, we have a strong community, we have a strong ecosystem, we are like friends and family. So don't be afraid to share what worked, what didn't, because only this will bring the sector further. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Vaida. It's really nice to hear what's next, especially because, as for myself, I'll be talking what's been past. So it's a nice balance between the two of us. But let us start with a brief agenda, what you can expect today here in the next hour and a bit with us. I will be using the home advantage since we are the hosts of this, so I will start with my little intro of the things that has been and what it's been like for ROCKIT in the 2022. Then we will have 3 speakers that we're going to wrap up the year in the different angles. We're going to have the regulators angle, going to have the fintech angle, and the investors angle on that. Then we will continue with the panel discussion, and we'll definitely finish with networking that I like to call B&B. It's not bed and breakfast, it's bubbles and bites. So do please stay for that. And since there's so many people here, I encourage you or challenge you to meet someone you haven't met yet and make at least one connection tonight, because it is all about building community and forming partnerships. So going on next, this is a little bit of inception. Thank God I'm not wearing the same shirt. I wanted to review the ROCKIT year, what it's been like for ROCKIT and ROCKIT members. And if after the pandemic we thought that we're gonna breathe out, we survived really hard and tough years, and we're gonna finally have a calm year. So that obviously did not happen. And I'm sure that the speakers later will address that. from the investment climate to energy, economic crisis, EU regulations, and obviously not to mention the war that's happening near us. So it has not been an easy year. But again, to balance everything out, I'll be focusing on positives, and I'll be focusing on the things that have been good. And the reflection about ROCKIT for me is building new bridges and opportunities, because I feel that's what we've been doing for the last year. So a quick review. Before I do that, I will be sharing my highlights. And while I speak for hopefully not more than 10 minutes, please do share yours. So do scan the code or go to menti.com and enter 55407034. And do share your highlight. While I speak, please enter that, and then we'll share it on the screen to see what was your highlight of the year, and what will you remember as you wrap up this year. So I'll give you another second to scan if you haven't done it, or take a picture of the code just in case. And then we can move on. So we started this year by producing this fintech map that we do every year together with our friends at Invest in Lithuania. And we started with 265, payments still the king, as Vaida said, credit, capital, insurance, still lacking. So I'm very curious to see how the landscape will change. We already started doing a new map, and we will present it in March 2023, and I'm taking bets during that networking, and your guess is how many fintechs do you think we're going to have this year? But I'm very happy to say that 40 of those fintechs sit and work under this roof here at ROCKIT and do their magic every day. We also have 8 companies that work in the sustainable innovation, because sustainability is on everyone's agenda, and we are no exception. And in total, we have 84 people that work here. So I am always very happy to have so many people that truly, without any exaggeration, inspire me, and I admire people that actually I get to meet here every day, and this is my highlight as well of this job, that I get to meet very smart people. So this is a strong community that we have here at ROCKIT, and I want to celebrate that community and see what has been happening in the last year. So despite all the bad things that I mentioned that have been happening, the ROCKIT community still managed to attract investment, increase the size of their teams, launch new products, enter new markets, share their know-hows in the conferences, trainings, etc., get awards, be listed in the best of lists, and the list goes on and on and on. And this busy slide makes me very happy, because the main purpose of ROCKIT, and why we work and what we do here, is we always say that our activities stand on 3 pillars. 1 is building community, 2 is sharing know-how, and 3 is forming partnerships. And in this slide, everything happened. There is partnerships between our members, there is know-how sharing, and there is a very strong community. So that is another highlight, that the promise of ROCKIT has been fulfilled through the hands of fintechs that work here. And I mentioned a lot of lists, so this is just one example that MasterCard has, mentioned the Baltic and Nordic to be watched fintechs, and our members are also listed there. And I also want to have a special mention for the Fintech Hub Lithuania, that was listed by Fintech Times as, the best association yet. ROCKIT has also got a mention that a very good ecosystem place, so no advertisement intended, but if you're not a member of either, have a think. And obviously all these successes have to be celebrated. During pandemic we haven't done that because it was difficult to do it in front of the screens, but last year we revived our FinTech of the Year awards, and we celebrated the best, and we promised that we're going to do it again at the beginning of next year, early March. So have already a think. Who would you like to nominate? Nominate yourself. There's no shame in that. And if you would like to be part of the jury, let me know. So that was the happenings under the ROCKIT roof, what was been happening here. But we obviously play in the larger ecosystem. that we like to think that we are part of. And the larger ecosystem is even stronger because that's quite natural. When you come together, you do more. So what we did together with the ecosystem. So last year was the year when the first time we had a stab at organizing a fintech conference. We've never done that because usually we just do a couple of hours events, but we did the full-on day conference, and obviously that would not have happened without the ecosystem help. You came as attendees, came as speakers, supported us emotionally, morally, financially, in any other way. So thank you very much for all of you who were part of the success, and we were very encouraged by the positive feedback that we received, and we promise to do it again. The other thing that we did, that's again working together as an ecosystem, we went to the Money 2020 conference in Amsterdam. And I think I am not mistaken to say that possibly it was the biggest fintech, Lithuanian Fintech gathering in the conference abroad. So again, this was a project that initiated but done together with the whole ecosystem and done together with us. So thank you for joining us on that adventure. And obviously for me, it was also the sort of recognition cherry on the cake when the European Commissioner, Mairead McGuinness, came and she chose ROCKIT as a place to meet the ecosystem, and the ecosystem showed up in the middle of summer, even though it's high peak of holiday. So again, I just want to thank you for always showing up and always being part of our activities. So this is the part when I talk about the bridges and opportunities for collaboration, because what we've been trying to do in the last year is to expand our network abroad. So not to have partnerships only in Lithuania, but also abroad. And I think we've been doing a pretty good job. So my message here is, if you need any contacts, whether it would be the Chamber of Commerce in Singapore or Israel or Taiwan Fund, whatever, you know where ROCKIT team sits, just come and ask us. We're always happy to do introductions because that's part of a job, to share the partnerships. And the other opportunity is, I mentioned the sustainability and the climate agenda, that it's on everyone's table, and you might ask me what it has to do with fintech, but there are touch points with fintech, and in February, to be precise, the 4th to 10th of February, we're going to host a Swiss accelerator that is actually accelerating climate fintechs. So for a week here under this roof, we will have investors, where we have climate fintechs, we will have mentors and lecturers that are going to talk on this topic. So as ROCKIT members, there's a perfect opportunity for you to meet them and learn. So do take that opportunity and do come if you're around. And this is my last slide, where I want to thank everyone. Again, I want to thank the wider community for always showing up, whether we invite, sometimes last minute, to moderate a panel discussion, or we invite you to talk at the events, or invite you to mentor at the accelerators. You do always show up. And I do want to say a very, very special thank you to the ROCKIT team, who is obviously working behind that screen so everyone runs smoothly. But I want to say thank you to Rasa, to Dominika, Sedita, and Camille, and the new addition. There you go, these guys. Can we give them a round of applause? Because they are amazing. And with that, let's go and see what were your highlights, because those were mine. Wow, Vilnius Tech Fusion launched. I like that, right bang in the center. Kevin Series A round, congratulations. FTX is someone's highlight. Vilnius Ecosystem and Money 2020, yes, thank you. That was a very good highlight of mine as well. And planned audit, interesting. New regulations. Amsterdam delegation twice, very good. Second unicorn, yes, amazing highlight. Sustainability and finance we need to scroll down a little bit. New York, FTX 3 times, my gosh, what a highlight. 4, okay. Okay, Kevin Series A round, okay, I think a unicorn for sure. Can we scroll down a little bit, or is this it? I guess this is it. So thank you for sharing, and thank you for a good sense of humor as well. Let's continue on to more serious things. And the more serious things are my promised fintech sector's highlights from different perspectives. So in this order, I would like firstly to invite Simonas Krėpšta, the board member of the Bank of Lithuania, to give his perspective. Thank you.
Thank you for your kind introduction, and happy to be here, actually in the center of European Fintech Center. I don't know, maybe you missed the fact, but this year Lithuanian companies reach close to 25 million serviced customers through the Europe. 25 million, close to 25 million at the end of this year. So I think that's the fact we, as a community, should all celebrate. And at the same time, I should mention we should take the responsibility to serve these customers at the highest possible standards in a broad sense, from the individual perspective, from each of you, but also from the jurisdiction perspective, to be safe and sound and trustworthy jurisdiction, Lithuania. So I will share some stylized facts, what the development looked like during this year. And then in the end, I will make some considerations, put some ideas, what could be, to my mind, some of the key success factors looking forward. So let's start. Of course, the fintech environment, as it was rightly described, is quite broad, and it's getting broader. I think the landscape is getting broader. We get much more companies, unlicensed companies, providing financial services to financial institutions. But also we see Paytech center in the center of our landscape, but other sectors are also expanding, consumer lending, for example, wealth tech and investments. But let's begin with the payments segment. And what we see here, a few main messages. 2021 and 2022 was the exceptionally fast growth years. We saw exponential growth in terms of transactions and turnover by a factor of 2, for example, this year, if we compare to last year. And that's related with the number of customers, as I mentioned. It will be close to 25 million at the end of this year. 1.5 years ago, we served around 10 million customers around Europe. Of course, it's fair to say that the sector is rather concentrated. Yes, we have a lot of institutions. At the same time, 10 largest institutions recognizes and covers more than 85% of the whole market. So on the other hand, it's a lot of potential for future growth in terms of smaller and mid-sized companies. On profitability, we see some volatility. So one quarter is positive, the next is negative, and it's followed again by some profits. So it's dwindling around zero. But given the circumstances, I think it's not a bad result. This year is truly exceptional. We see, brutal aggression of Russia in Ukraine, and we haven't seen that for decades. We see exceptionally high inflation. We see implosion of several sectors, as you mentioned, the crypto, for example. So many major events happening this year, and still the growth is quite fast, and the profitability is shuffling around zero. Now, when we look at the consumer lending, that's another segment which is growing quite quickly. And here you can see that in the first 3 quarters, the turnover is pretty much the same which we reached last year. So definitely the full year results will again be 30-40% growth compared to last year. And here crowdfunding segment is worth mentioning. We see more market players entering the market. We see higher turnover, and we probably see the demand from customers coming to the segment. And at the same time, we're getting new regulation coming into force next year, which will allow the sector to operate in same rules and same conditions within the European Union, and that's another window to reach all European customers. So we clearly see that this sector is preparing, relicensing, and is ready to increase its growth next year as well. Now, some considerations for the future. That's of course from the regulator's point of view, but I believe there are several important pillars which are unavoidable. It goes hand in hand with the long-term success of the sector, both from individual perspective but also from the system-wide perspective. Of course, the last pillar, but the core pillar is innovations and enterprises, and that's of course what you guys are doing. But at the same time, I believe that cybersecurity is a very important topic, and I will elaborate on this later on. But just one fact, our analysis show that 40% of all financial institutions experienced smaller or bigger cyber threat this year. And this number is quite telling that we need to prepare. Now, AML, of course, that's one of the key success factors if we are good at, and unfortunately, that's also a risk for stability of the jurisdiction as well. And data management, that's another topic where the Bank of Lithuania is taking quite important steps forward, and I will talk about it later on. So let's start with the cybersecurity. As I mentioned, 40% of all financial institutions experience threats, smaller or bigger this year. Another fact, the geographical proximity of the aggressor country, that also gives some challenges for us. So that means that we need to be better prepared than basically all other countries in European Union. And that's basically the goal from our side, and of course working with other institutions. We have a good starting positions. Our National Cybersecurity Center is ranked one of the best and the strongest in European Union. But we think this is not enough, and we need another link between individual cybersecurity efforts on entity level, state level infrastructure and support, but we need a middle mezzanine level, and some countries they have this so-called FinCert centers, which basically provide strategic but also tactical analysis and advice, and they are specifying and their efforts and concentrating on specific sectors. And we think that we need to have such an institution or a segment, a part of institution operating and working on financial sector. So that's one of the goals for the future, and we're making progress here, talking with our National Cybersecurity Center, some financial institutions, how to make this private and public partnership operating and adding out value to the resilience of our ecosystem. AML, that's an old topic, especially important, obviously, for us as supervisors, but we truly think that it's very important. I think there are many ways to be successful and many ways to become a financial center of Europe, but there is one common way to fail being a financial center. And we have examples, unfortunately, we have examples in other countries. So our mission is to do whatever it is possible to do to avoid such situations and to promote the long-term success of the sector. So from our side, we're increasing resources, we employ digital solutions. We do, of course, not individual analysis, but horizontal analysis. And actually this year, I think one exercise, this horizontal sanctions analysis, which covered around 15 entities, was a really successful example and exercise. We really got quite a good feedback from market participants, because that was not followed by any sanctions or whatsoever. It was more an analytical event, providing feedback for institutions, and it was really good to see that most of the institutions take it really serious and upgrade their systems on that. Yeah, and I also one more thing. I truly think it's not OPEX; it's a CAPEX. Because OPEX, what is OPEX? Is daily running expenses, something not important. But investments into EML, it's as important as it is investments to capital, and innovations for example, production companies, to my mind. Now, data. Of course, you basically all are data-driven organizations. And we at the Bank of Lithuania, several years ago, we were thinking what we can do, how we can contribute to have the data environment better in the future. And you probably know that we're running a big project, how to collect reporting data in a completely new way. Actually, we're making progress there. We made a public procurement. We were now in implementation phase, and basically, EMI and payment institutions will be the first ones, which we hope to be transferred to the completely new reporting systems using APIs and granular data, and then we will create the reports we will need, or it is needed by legal regulation. So we believe that will be quite a change, and quite a positive change, both in terms of lower costs at the end of the day, hopefully for you, but also new capabilities for working with data, and basically new efficiency capabilities also for us as a regulator and supervisor. So this real-time supervision will be possible in the future, and from your side, real-time reporting with seamless reporting, basically, and that's also the goal. And last but not least, one thing I would like to share regarding innovations and future potential. So yes, it was quite amazing. You mentioned 4 times FTX and the crypto, but no one mentioned the CBDC, which could be even more important change for the future, and especially for the payment industry. A lot of major central banks are working with the digital currency, central bank digital currency. We know that several countries already are running it, and we can get some feedback how it is going. The European Central Bank is also putting quite important efforts on this project. And as you can see here, next year we will have more steps forward, and basically at the end of 2023, the European Central Bank's Governing Council is expected to take a decision whether to go and launch the digital euro and make it operational or not. Of course, legal endorsement from European Commission will also be needed. It could be that it's recognized as a legal tender with another kind of implications for the market. But I think my message is that that's the area which you should look at and explore, because I think that could transform the payment segment, the payment sector particularly. That could be potentially a new payments schemes, payment infrastructure to be used, and something like card schemes, which is quite a big thing to come. So that was all, and yeah, I'm happy to take some questions if you have.
So hello everyone. I thought that I will be invited, but looks like I'm gonna stand on my own. So I guess the majority of you know me. I'm Vaida Muller, the head of Fintech Hub LT. And I was asked to talk about fintech, wrap up the fintech. So instead of, I decided, how do I go back? To talk about maturity and cancer. Prevention of cancer, I would say. So first of all, let's look a bit at the numbers. Some of them you already saw, some of them you haven't. But looking at the current ecosystem, we see that this year we didn't have many licenses, new licenses, while some of the licenses were revoked. And at the same time, we have quite a lot of VASPs. I calculated around 658 new VASPs this year only. And VASPs, who doesn't know, it's the virtual asset providers, so the FTX kind of. But at the same time, I'm very glad that the Ministry of Finance issued the new law. And I guess with the new regulations, most likely that next year we will have only, I would say, maximum 10% of these companies because the others will not be able to reach the standards. And in that terms, it's a good to have 80 matured companies with new innovative ideas. Also, I want to kind of highlight one thing, that these licensed companies, although the number didn't decrease, they already paid more taxes comparing to last year, and we still in December, so November and December is not included here. And at the same time, the average in the industry, the salary in the industry is far higher comparing to the average of in Lithuania. So let's look at the transactions. So Simonas showed a bit. My highlight, well, despite the fact that I am analyzing the Q2 and Simonas nicely presented the Q1 comparison, so we can see that we already hit the last year numbers. For the purpose of kind of clarity, I excluded Revolut, so you could kind of see the Revolut next to it, but because Revolut was still operating under the EMI license during the analyzed period, while now the Revolut is a bank and will not be included into the numbers. So huge applause to the companies, the 10 top, and I know that some of the CEOs are here, so raise the glass. These did very well this year so far, and I'm sure the numbers will be showing much higher. But at the same time, those who are doing the business will say, well, Vaida, I mean, the transaction doesn't mean anything. Do they make the profit? Do they collect the money? So I try to analyze the data also from a different angle. And here we see that the growth of income, also some companies are outperforming, the same as with transactions. But what the most important thing for me is that while analyzing the data from last year, half of the licensed companies were profitable. So I know Simon has mentioned the profitability a bit, but knowing that we are in this not the best times from an economical perspective, I think it's a very good sign that these companies, quite a lot of these companies are already profitable. That means that they don't need additional investment. Now let's talk not about some nice things, but about the fines. Every year I overview that part, and it's not my nice thing to talk, but let's look not only at the nice things, but only at the bad things. So you could see that the numbers, we already hit the numbers this year, and the numbers actually are not even accurate anymore, because half an hour ago I saw that the Bank of Lithuania issued another 2 fines. So plus 40,000 to the numbers. And I really hope that this year, well, last year when I looked at the numbers last year, I saw that it was half of that amount in December when I presented, meaning that last year the Bank of Lithuania was like a Grinch who issued half of the amount in the last 2 weeks of the year. So for this year, I really wish and I hope that the Bank of Lithuania will be a Santa Claus and will come back to us with a settlement policy. Some of them you might remember that last year they did announce the consultation and showed the project about the settlement. Nearly a year and a half went, so I really hope that they are working, and this year we're gonna receive the best of the best gift. And now let's talk a bit about the ecosystem. So both Vaida mentioned quite a lot about the changes. Simonas also talked about the ecosystem. So I will be the same, probably slightly from the different angles. So when we think about the body of the ecosystem, we know that in order to prevent cancer, everything needs to function as they should. If one organ decides to do the things they want, let's say the heart decides to have more oxygen, then the other parts are kind of dying because we don't have oxygen. The same with all the other parts. So the way I see is the Minister of Finance is as a lawmaker, the brain who analyze what happens around, meaning the new regulations which are coming, war, economical situation, and so on, and sends the rules kind of through the veins to all the ecosystem, including the regulators, FAU and Bank of Lithuania and other institutions. So why do I talk about that? That here we kind of, the question is, so how do we ensure the maturity and how do we prevent the cancer? So I try to analyze myself, and I would say, if I want to be healthy, I need to eat good food. Means that I need to have new licenses. I want to provide new services. I want to work through the agency model, and these should still go because the cells need to regenerate themselves. Otherwise, we're gonna be too slim or too tired if we don't have food enough. Well, also do their own business. The regulators supervise, the companies do their own. If the companies are obliged to follow the rules, they should follow the rules. If they don't follow the rules, they can't expect that the Bank of Lithuania will come and will not issue the fine. They will, because that's the rule. And the same is applicable to the Bank of Lithuania or the regulator in general, that if you are supervising, you should supervise, but don't judge the other parts as a business, how the business should run. The rules are the rules. If there is no rules, we can't really, you can't really, the way I say it's like the heart should be blind. We all think that when you are blind, you get in love. So the same is with hard hair. The decision should be made based on the rules, not on the feelings I like or dislike. expect less. The reason why I say expect less, we need to follow the regulations, while the expectations are, like in relationship. If you have too much expectations, you usually fail. So in these times when it's not the easy time for any of us, both institutions and the industry, I think we just need to expect less and just do their own business as much as well as we can. Also, Simon has mentioned risk, and risk are definitely very important, and we need to manage our own risk, but at the same time manage the risk around us. Why do I say that? Because if we see that something is happening and if I see that if I'm the lung and my kidney is ill, and if I don't do anything about it, it's not that good. Like, you are still, as an ecosystem, ill. So we need to support each other. And that's the reason why the second one is to cooperate. We need to cooperate. There are quite a lot of new regulations are coming, and Vaida mentioned, and both Simon has mentioned these. Some of them are very new, and we don't know what to do with them. We need to cooperate and try to learn from each other, share, so we can still continue leading the ecosystem, going to the European Commission, sharing our own view. If we don't understand what the DeFi is, learn what the DeFi is, what we can do with that. If we don't understand how to manage crypto, we need to learn how to manage crypto instead of de-risking, and so on. And the last point would be adapt to the new. It's very, very important, not just to listen that you need to adapt. We all know from our daily life that we need to adapt to the new circumstances, and the war starts and the corona hits. We need to adapt, not just listen that something is happening, but we need to adapt. So I encourage everyone, be adaptable and cooperate. We do have very healthy and nice ecosystem, and let's continue that. Who is now?
Okay, hello everyone. So just very briefly, so I'm Jana, I'm founder of First Pick, early stage venture capital fund. I think I'm here today because we have invested in a lot of fintechs. I'm not really sure at the end why, but like Ocredo, Ondato, Kevin, Heavy Finance, etc. And actually so many more are now coming from our pipeline. And today I will be speaking very briefly about what was happening in fintech from investors' perspective or investment perspective. And here also, just to make it quite clear, this is not about the fintechs that are moving to Lithuania or the Baltics, but actually our founding talent. And maybe more the message should be like, do we have actually enough fintech talent? And are we actually this fintech country, as we keep on saying, which is good, we should keep on saying that, but still, let's be honest with ourselves. So just maybe some of you have seen some of the previous presentations we did about that. Yeah. But just to highlight, the data that you will see here is actually gathered by our First Pick team. So we kind of collected from open source, but also like really just scraping LinkedIn and all the news. And the data range that you'll see here is for this year until the 1st of December. So everything we'll compare here is actually until 1st of December. So very fresh. A perspective to give the perspective to the numbers, because we are in this bubble of venture capital financing. For us, it looks like quite clear, but actually probably just to give some context, this is the total amount that was invested in startups in the Baltics. So that's actually well over 1 billion. It's like almost 2 billions. And since the last time I was doing this presentation in May, it was just above 1 billion. So actually, like, some investments kept on happening. Of course, everyone knows who's leading here, but just for a little comparison, of course, Estonia was taking most of the investment. Again, this is for overall startups, and we'll come to the fintechs. But be mindful that a big part of that money was raised by Bolt, which also made the total investments this year very, very high. And this is the number of investments made this year, so just around 124, which is fine. But last year, at the same time, we had 177. Is there like any outcome out of that? Probably yes. I think the rounds are getting larger and we have less smaller rounds, but that's just for some comparison. But what about fintech? I think this is why we're here. So now that we have the kind of understanding of how much was invested overall, this is how much was invested in fintechs in each country. So basically, Estonia is here still taking the lead. This is not surprising, knowing that they took like almost 80% of all the financing. But Lithuania is not doing too bad. Latvia is always like the third one. That's also fine. They have pretty good fintechs that did not raise this year, but probably will raise good Series A's next year. To compare, this is actually how it looks like kind of relatively to the total financing. So while Estonia has still the largest amount of funding for fintechs, as a percentage of the total, it's way less than, for example, in Lithuania. So here we had actually almost 30% of venture capital investments went into the fintechs, and this is a very representative percentage of the global scale. Actually, 22% of the total venture capital funding in the world went for fintechs. So Lithuania is actually even above that average. And the interesting thing that's also seen across Baltics, but also Lithuania, and I'll show that in another slide, is that the amount of funding that goes into fintechs, and that's in million euros, has grown exponentially, like really quite fast. But the number of rounds is getting smaller. So what it means is that the ecosystem as the Baltics is maturing. We are getting less but bigger rounds. And the same is exactly for the Baltics. And so whereas we had 16 million in 2020 for fintechs, this year we had 67 million, but only 3 deals. So this year it was 3 fintechs financed in Lithuania, which in my opinion is a very poor number. For example, last year at least we had 12. And I think there are reasons, and we'll discuss that in the panel, so I don't want to kind of give away everything I have. I think this is something where we should think what has happened. And looking on the Baltic perspectives, actually fintech rounds were happening every month. So Lithuania was really behind in that. And where you see the logos, it's the round, like the Series A rounds. So these are really kind of the rounds that show the maturity. The companies are growing quite fast and they boost the total number of investments. Only August did not have a single fintech investment across Baltics. And I think the maturity also is shown by the fact that we had 6 Series A and 7 seed rounds in fintech, and way less early stage or venture. Venture is the bridge round. So actually, this is probably the result of 10, 12 years consistent work from fintech founders. And this year, not sure how many of you are super excited about this, as I am, but those big rounds were actually led by funds that almost have never been here in the Baltics. So Axel, Atomico, Index Ventures, Target Global, they are massive funds that came into the Baltics just for the fintechs. And this is what we should probably be really thankful for kind of the fintech ecosystem, because these names will keep on funding next startups, either you're fintech or not. In Lithuania, though, as I said, everything looks a little bit less good. Here we see the total amount of funding, not just for fintechs. And where we see the logos is the number of fintech rounds we had. So we actually had the 3 fintech rounds, obviously Kevin, and then 2 this autumn. So thankfully those happened as well. But for sure, we would expect to see much more next year. And this is how it aligns. So we had one early stage deal, one seed deal, and one Series A, which was very big and really kind of was renowned around the world. Still too little. But maybe I don't want to actually finish on a positive note, because I don't think that the fintech financing or the landscape is that positive. I think we are lacking somewhat of a conversion of pre-seed and seed companies to later stages, and this is really probably a problem of not having enough financing as well. But now with our fund, we kept on scouting for the past quarter, and this is actually what we have, kind of the applications that we receive or the companies that we meet. From all the niche verticals or just the verticals, fintech took almost 13%. And this is quite a lot, because behind the other, there's like 15 or almost 20 other verticals. So it's really like even crypto Web3, we take it apart. Marketplaces that are mainly driven on payments, they're also taken apart. So fintech is actually, I would say, a leader, because SaaS is also almost everything, in my opinion. And from all these applicants, and we are looking at the Baltics, almost 40% is coming from Lithuania. So whereas we speak about the big companies, the ones being licensed, the Series A that are not happening or should be happening on much larger scale, there is a lot of, I would say, talent and small companies that are doing something. They might not be here today. Some of them, they are actually in our office today. So there is stuff happening, but I think like our role should be to ensure that they are converting somehow to those bigger rounds, and then we can actually call ourselves this fintech country. On talent perspective, I think we're doing fine. So this is it. Oh, there is actually a very short briefing, but I promised Andrews that I'll tell about it more in the panel. About the trends, and I think you'll be surprised that when we speak about what's next, there is not so much like futuristic, let's say, outlook in the fintech space, but more verticalization and many more just digging deep into the sectors that were working very well. But I'll cover that later. So yeah, that's it. Thank you, and let's continue.
Do I hear myself? Yeah. So, hello everyone, and I have a lot of happy news that I'd like to share, and maybe the main message I'd like to send. We're only one panel away from the networking part. So our event will shortly end, and we only want to gather very interesting people on the stage and briefly discuss what did happen. You saw a lot of data here, and what can we expect next year. So allow me to invite my dear panelists on the stage. Vaida Mulė, head of Fintech Hub LT. Can I ask for a round of applause? Yes. Jonė, come back on stage. Jonė Vaitulevičiūtė, managing partner at First Pick. Justinas Lasevičius, COO and co-founder at TransferGo. Please join me. And last but not least, Lukas Jakubonis, head of financial market development at the Bank of Lithuania. Okay. Let's begin. So guys, looking back at 2022, okay, I don't want to mention everything that happens, but we just started to recover. Then the war in Ukraine, economic recession, stock markets, crypto crash, inflation, etc., etc., etc. But looking at the numbers, is it me or Lithuanian fintech ecosystem? They actually weathered pretty good in the local, regional, and global storming situation, right? What do you think? What were the most relevant developments in the sector in Lithuania, or have you seen in 2022? But from your own, maybe private perspective, Vaida, can I start from you? You're the best one in terms of the data.
Really? Okay, works. So once again, hello everyone. Well, I think that the surviving mood is in the nature of fintechs. We started with a crisis, and now we only, in the last few years, we had quite a lot of different crises, and While during the COVID, the majority of fintechs, they're asking for, not fintechs, the companies, other companies, they're asking for, some help from the national institutions. The fintechs, the opposite. They're like, oh, come here, we're gonna help you to help you. So I think it's the same this year. I mean, they're very used to adopting, changing. So I guess that's the reason why we still have very good numbers. Yes, if you look globally, there are some companies who fired quite a lot of people, but we don't see that so much in Lithuania. Some of them are expanding, some of them, I mean, it's normal, minimizing the costs, but the performance is still looks positive from the numbers.
I can honestly double up on what you just said, because when looking at Unicorns Lithuania, just like when they each and every quarter they show the data of the taxes paid of overall startup ecosystem, it seems that was the only industry in Lithuania that they didn't ask any funding or help. They were actually helping each and every one. But what is, Lucas, maybe your perspective from the regulators' perspective? Did you see any turbulences in the fintechs? And how did they tackle what was happening? Like, it's not only 2022, right? We had a lot of things that were happening, and this specific last quarter, oh my God, all the inflation, all the crashes. So what do you see?
So this work?
Yeah, it should. We have the technicians there, so they definitely will help
Now
us.
working?
Yeah, perfectly.
Okay, thank you. So thanks for the question. Just briefly, guys, I think we are doing quite well, let's face it. I mean, all the crises that Vaida just mentioned, they are just like mixed some things, but in terms of growth, and not in the numbers of licenses, but in terms of growth of operations, of people, of talents, of whatever, what Vaida showed, we're doing pretty well. I'm not sure about the fourth quarter data. Just had a peek on the quarter 3 data, and it looks fine. I mean, it looks promising, and we're probably gonna aim next year towards even more growth. So, just I would say that the best part of it is that the sector itself, in terms of licensed companies, it's not growing that much. It's actually a bit tracking down. But the operations, the maturity, and all sorts of stuff that indicates the growth of the companies that are operating is increasing. So that's the thing we should be glad about.
Okay, let's continue then. Justinas, you also saw a lot of great numbers here, right? And you represent one of the namely well-known fintech that is operating in Lithuania, not only here. From what did you see in your personal perspective? Do you, for example, see on the market some fresh air or new opportunities that were emerging, and some fintechs actually jumped in and used the chances that they could?
Yeah, I think from our point of view, so obviously there was a lot of turbulence this year, and I believe that especially in Lithuanian media ecosystem, most of the startups in general, as well as fintechs, we didn't have too much investments in the past, so it means there haven't been huge rounds over investments. So I believe that maybe the adjustments needed are smaller. And I think at the same time, most businesses have already used to adjust, to these fundraising cycles, where you kind of raise a round, you have certain goals you want to achieve, and then you're expecting another round. I think looking potentially into the next year, and I think we saw small investment numbers this year, so I hope that at least we will keep that number next year, because raising money next year will be probably even more challenging. At least this is what we see from the current market climate. Mm-hmm. So because cost of capital is obviously increasing, interest rates are increasing, so it's becoming more more expensive to grow, essentially, and more businesses, I think, as well as us. I think
We have
are-
recent layoffs in USA, so
Yeah,
we
so-
will get cheaper talents, right?
Yeah,
Especially in this market.
that's an opportunity. I think if you look from
Okay.
the SWOT analysis point of view, that's definitely an opportunity.
Fire
for some
everyone.
fintechs
We are
to
hiring
maybe
everyone.
attract some talent, consolidate the talent. But at the same time, yeah, I think it's more. It's also the time to, especially for a scale-up stage. I think it's the time definitely to optimize and operations. So yeah, I think this is one of the areas which we see what's currently
Okay,
happening.
we'll jump into that. Jone, you're so serious, but I would like to ask you, how did your portfolio companies, namely fintechs, were doing? How did they tackle the issues that were happening? And maybe, like you just showed also the presentation that you had new companies just filling in, right, the applications to get funded. Have you seen any interesting new business models being emerging?
A lot of questions. So
Only two. Let's
One
begin
by
with
one.
two, okay?
Okay. In our portfolio, I think I would agree here that still in the Baltics, we did not see too many down rounds or layoffs because not too many companies were overcapitalized.
We are very good with evaluations here in this market, right?
Yes, I think maybe Wise or TransferWise, they had a bit different story. So that's maybe good news for Lithuania in a sense. But for sure, overall trend for fintechs this year was defined that the valuations or the multiples dropped by like 50% on average globally. So as I said, we did not see that in our portfolio, but those that did not manage to ride the wave of fintech last year, there is a really stark difference this year for fundraising. It's almost like with almost 500,000 MRR, it's super difficult to raise around. So that's interesting. So that's that about our portfolio. From the new fintechs, out of 6 of our new investments that we're doing right now, 3 are fintechs. So
But what about the business models? Is it the business model that you've seen somewhere
Yes.
and people are just trying to do something better,
Yes.
or they're actually approaching some completely new angle in the fintech world?
No, I would say it's something that we have heard of, and maybe that's maybe a cliche in startup world that there's always has to be some new business model or something very new. I think in many cases it's improvement, or as I've also mentioned in my slide, it's really verticalization and going deep down into a specific vertical rather than, for example, being a horizontal payment as a Stripe solution. Then you go more vertically. So this is what we see a lot, and we love it.
Or narrow down some specific audience and actually solve their issues, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, but yeah, we can speak about the pretty healthy ecosystem that we do have in Lithuania. We can speak about the future possibilities, and there's European Commission, right? So we have DORA, we have blockchain sandboxes, we have centralized ID that will definitely change the way we approach the KYC, virtual asset service providers. We mentioned them many times today, decentralized financing, Web3, CBDC, and many more upcoming regulations, topics, directives, etc., etc., etc. If we think that we are the leading fintech ecosystem in Europe, at least, right? Are we actually looking towards these changes that we will have to apply? And if today we are feeling in some cases that so many various industries, or let's say jurisdictions, they approach us and ask us how did we do it and do we understand a bit more on some specific topic. So are we leading in this situation, Vaida? And I'd like to address this question maybe to you because I feel that it hurts the most for this association that you represent?
Well, don't think it hurts. I do still think that we are leading. So when you think about DORA, Mika, green finance, which was also mentioned by Vaida, Vice Minister, then the CBDC, they all somehow related with the blockchain, decentralized finance, VASPs, which we already have quite many in Lithuania. And even now we have, at the same time and in a different place in Vilnius, have a global meeting where the the leaders meet and talk what to do about that. Tomorrow we're going to have a Web3 conference, also international conference. So we do talk. The European Central Bank invites us to talk. I think the most important thing is for us, also to share that news and knowledge within the ecosystem. So to ensure that the regulations which are coming would, the directives would be laid down into Lithuanian law the way they should be. And that's where the cooperation is very necessary. And at the same time, I mean, we are like 5 years back or 6 years back when we had the crisis and then the fintech's rise, born. So now we're kind of in the same stage when the fintechs are now emerging with banks. The Revolut is now the bank, not kind of fintech, kind of not. The Swedbank and the other big banks have apps. So they are also similar to the fintech, or they took the part. And now we have a decentralized finance, VAS, which are new for me, new for us. And as the leaders, we just need to look at them, as Simonas nicely pointed, manage the risks, but at the same time, see where the opportunities are. And when you think about the fintech ecosystem, it's all the innovations are based on the regulations. If regulation changes, you have new opportunities. So with AIDAS, you're going to have digital identity. With DORA, you have different ones. The Target 2 system emerged. With the blockchain, you have new opportunities. So I think that those who are, in this industry and understands, they do have quite a lot of opportunities in regards to creating the new technologies, and quite many of Lithuanian companies are already doing that and participating at the CBDC testings and so on. So I do still think that we are leading. I am sure that the regulators invited to different jurisdictions to share the knowledge, how we did that, the way we did that. I think it's just important to be adaptive and not afraid of new things we don't understand.
Well, thank you for a truly wide opinion on such topic. Lucas, what is your take on this? And I do know that, for example, Latvia as a country, they're looking closely at what we have done here, but if they will start doing something that we already did, should we jump into the further regulations that come in from European Commission? And maybe we can be actually a leading ecosystem in which Swiss would come, I don't know, any just name jurisdiction, they would come and say like, guys, we have a feeling that you understand a bit better, or at least how can we apply what is going to be enforced pretty much soon. So what's your opinion on this?
Thank you. First of all, very valid question. It's funny for me because I'm not a huge crypto fan. Those who know me...
You don't have to be a fan to play with it.
Crypto fan, no. Blockchain, yeah, that's kind of a different story there. So, so I'm not going to be as wide as Vaida was, but first of all, Mika, there's a lot of specifics there on what's coming. Yes, there's a regulation in place, but still there's a lot of uncertainty on how the ecosystem will work and which aspects would it cover and which will be left behind. For example, Bitcoin, we know that is basically decentralized, right? So there will be finally, as I understand, nobody, nobody controlling it, so nobody to regulate in a sense. So it's a one way, one problem with the Mika, and many other would probably come. But there's also there's not so much media around DLT pilot regime that's coming in. So basically, it's in the same framework from the European Commission. But what it does is it allows actually to build some of the investment services or some of the services in the investment chain on the blockchain, and this is a very, very big step forward. And I encourage all of you that's currently very disappointed about the FTX meltdown and stuff, go and research on DLT pilot regime. You might think of some new ideas on
on how to what services to provide if you're dealing in blockchain.
You know, sometimes when I'm thinking or I'm talking about the FTX, I'm saying like being a scam is a scammer's thing, right? We shouldn't be disappointed here.
Yeah, that's actually what I thought when I saw that, you know, everyone's disappointed. So
can there be any regulation that would actually stop from this happening?
I mean, yeah, sure. When there's a crypto exchange, in terms of regulating crypto exchanges, I would say, well, from nowadays perspective, there should have been already a regulation, because you might not know this, but crypto's changing the world since like 2017 or something like that. But still, as it is the same in a way.
Well, certainly we have a lot of very luxury cars on the street, so maybe that's not a bad outcome, right? Justinas, you are also, guys, you're looking at the new opportunities, right? So is there some specific angle that opens up a very big opportunity for next year, or at least when you're talking to your colleagues or the companies you are cooperating, maybe there are some specific fields you would basically advise everyone to look at, especially when we do know that some specific regulations will be in place?
Yeah, I think for us, what we also like is to utilize existing stable technology and scale those. So I think from what I see that, what I really like, and I think what I see that, you know, even SEPA Instant, for example, is adopted by more banking partners, for more banks in Europe. And I think that kind of for Europe, for European Union, that puts a good foundation to build fintech companies on top of that. So we can consider that as a platform, for example, and potentially even, I think the area which I really keen and interested to see how it develops is obviously central bank digital currency. I think we can see that as a, to some extent, maybe as a competitor to the SEPA Instant, but that again could further accelerate the speed of transactions. So essentially, I don't have the data, but we can just simply look how much liquidity that unlocks. You know, if you can get payment instantly, and this is what we as Transfer Group been building our business from day one. And I remember when in 2012, when we started, for us to deliver money in Lithuania instantly, we had to have like a, you know, correspondent bank account, a bank account with each single biggest local bank, like Swedbank, SAB, and other local banks, which now, you know, SEPA Instant unlocked that capability. It means it's easier operationally, so it's cheaper for us to operate, as well as, you know, we unlocked liquidity, which we can use to grow the business. So I think again, I see that even, you know, government-backed stable coin, SEPA Instant, I think that unlocks a lot of opportunities to most fintechs and open banking and so on.
Great to hear that. And allow me, Jone, to be a bit of devil's advocate here, okay? So, yes, obviously, regulation is needed in order to play according to rules, right? But from what I see sometimes, the only thing that we actually do, we take the company that is actually disrupting something, making something more effective, better, and making it to become a huge and very slow bank, right? And in this perspective, what happens there, all the innovators, all the startups, they do exactly the opposite they should be focusing on, right? When you operate as a VC, do you see it as a problem, or you're rather choose the side that, oh, well, if it's a problem, it's an opportunity somewhere there, right?
You mean a problem as in a sense that startups are becoming compliant?
They're very heavily regulated, and then, you know, startups fail fast, they test assumptions fast, and that's in their DNA to operate in a very unstable market. And when you jump in a very stable market, then you need a building of 16 floors, and 70% of the people that work there, they're only there to comply with Bank of Lithuania.
Yeah, I think here, I wouldn't want to be the backer of FTX at this point. So I think this is...
scam is a scam.
A scam is a scam. So that's why I think regulation is needed. And if you're building something that's related to payments or something that big, I think all investors and venture capital funds, they want you to be compliant. Otherwise, you're just part of that boat and you're gonna sink together. I'm not sure if anyone from the crowd has read Sequoias who have invested in FTX. memo to their investors. It's really hilarious how they write off 280 million 8 months after investment. This is actually something that should not be tolerated, but as Sequoia, you can do it. So in that case, we want them to comply for sure. A lot of the startups that are going after something like licensing, the only, maybe disadvantage for investors is that it will take a long time for them to acquire the license. So basically, if we are investing in the early stage, we know that it will take them a year before they can even get kind of some proof of concept, even though they can operate like kind of try to get product market fit, but to be actually operational, they'll need a lot of time. Good part is that when we speak about fintech, only a marginal part of that are those that need the licensing.
Yeah, and explaining the regulation can be another field of giving service to everyone who is playing on the market, right?
Yeah, I think that's happening. We have a lot of lawyers and consultants doing that. But yeah, I think just to end on this note, founders that actually come from this background or from this market, they have such a big advantage over those who come in. And surprise, surprise, we have so many applications for another neobank. I just can't. It's really just like they keep on coming, a better neobank every week. But then like you have founders that have zero knowledge of regulation, and then it's doomed.
I would love the founders that have zero knowledge on how the finances work would never actually start the fintechs, because it's still, we're playing with money here, right?
That's FTX.
There are a few things that we can learn from the FTX if you actually want to do something like this. Order a lot of TV ads, sponsor some sports teams, some stadiums, and operate in the fundraising of some presidential election. It gives you a lot of credit.
Basketball arena in Miami is still FTX.
Exactly, it's still FTX.
It's
okay,
still
okay.
So just wanted to pick, there's a very good points there, actually. And a very valid question, once again, what you've asked me before. I'm actually taking notes I'm taking notes in my mind, because it is a valid question. Should we exploit this as an opportunity, right? But now I'm just thinking, I didn't answer actually. So very shortly, we as a fintech center right now, we might have a luxury to wait and see what happens, and then jump into our goals and set our goals that yes, we want to expand in this way, and not just dive with our noses into somewhere water where there's no limits or there's no knowledge on what's below there. So I would say we should wait and keep it stable, keep calm, and just do what we're doing as a community.
Amen to that. Okay, Vaida, Web3. You've mentioned that we have a very big conference coming in very soon, right? But Web3 actually, it opens a completely new paradigm of future finances. Do you think it's time to jump in there, or no one actually understands how to eat it and what to do with it, and it's just like another trendy topic that we need like 5 years till we actually start doing anything with it?
Well, it's related with all the new upcoming regulations, and that's the reason why the companies are already analyzing that. So I think as a country we do need to look, that's where we always need to have a balance. Like with FTX, yes, it's a scam, but when we think about the ML and ML and compliance is like always mentioned in Lithuania many times. Still, by the statistics, the majority of the scammers are not catched. So it's the same, as with Corona. If you are ecosystem and you get the Corona, you're ill, but somehow you survive. So we're always gonna have, the failures. We're always gonna have success stories. And that's the reason why we have a regulator, why we have the fines. And probably during my presentation I didn't mention that I am not against the fines. Fines are okay. If you are really not doing something, you should get the fine. We should, both sides should have a common sense and a critical understanding what is the must and what is just the expectations. So in terms of the web free, and I mean they all are related with all these regulations. Like when we think about digital identity. Yeah? So that AIDAS will allow us to have, our passport on the phone, which will be valid in the whole European Union, meaning that I can travel with my passport, that I can go and get the loan in Germany.
That's why we're all so grateful to COVID passes, right? It actually taught us can you have an access everywhere just with your phone.
Yeah, so that brings quite a lot of new dimensions. How do you do the KYC? So if you have if the others will start to do the KYC with digital identity, the fintechs also will need to adapt that. And it's gonna be the opportunity for new KYC providers or for existing KYC providers. So the fintechs also need to overview, and the same with VASPs, the crypto assets. Yes, there are some bad guys there, and that's the reason why I said we all need to manage the risks. It's not just the regulator who needs to think about that, but at the same time, then we think about...
Do you believe in self-regulation?
Well, I'm generally a believer. You can see.
I don't.
But at the same, the CBDC, how it differs from the VASPs.
Okay.
It's the decentralized and that is decentralized. So it's, they are quite similar things. We need to adapt to the changes. If we have something new, we need to think how to work with that. And I'm not talking about de-risking. I'm talking about the managing the risks.
Justinus, you want to
I just wanted to maybe add on that digital identity. I think that will be a breakthrough if that really happens. I think that will unlock, again, that will, in the first place, will save a lot of money to fintechs because we're spending a lot of money, obviously, to other RegTech companies doing all the KYC identity. So I think that's definitely an opportunity to, again, at the same time, I think that will help to even reduce the fraud levels. As well as obviously improve the whole onboarding experience to customers. And I think we have a good example with our friends in Ukraine. They are actually ahead of us, ahead of the whole European Union. We have this DEA app, which is basically identity on your phone.
I've seen it operating. It's actually amazing.
And I think if I would expect to achieve the same level of kind of product or service, and the way I envision is like, this identity should compete with Google sign-up button. So I think we should achieve that kind of product level fit where we could easily sign up, obviously in a compliant, privacy compliant way as well. But I think that's a big opportunity for, I think, Lithuanian ecosystem as well as for European Union in general.
Okay. Everyone, we are actually moving towards the end of our panel, so you still have time to ask your questions that I will be directing to my fellow panelists. Lucas, when can I expect on the Metaverse Bank of Lithuania branch to be opened? Tricky one, I know.
Yeah, I mean...
we can open a museum first.
Do they have KYC policies in place and digital identity already, or...?
Well, I did participate in the EdTech conference, and it was widely said and agreed that the younger generation, that's the only place where we actually teach them, for example, financial literacy. That could be something big.
Now now I'm on the spot where I'm kind of thinking if you're joking or not. So just but yeah, I mean, I think we never thought about it, in a sense. So it. Maybe
that's a very good topic for the networking part, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So especially we are now having established financial literacy center in Bank of Lithuania.
Can you say a couple of words? So how is it working, and what are the results?
Maybe
we're happy about.
Main goals on that is to basically educate the society in a very broad way. So I'm gonna forward this suggestion of yours to the head of the center.
Amazing, guys. And just we are going towards the end. VCs or venture capital, or basically the capital available. VCs are the key factor for the development of the fintechs, right? And it's obvious what I saw on Vaiva's presentation that half of the fintechs, they're actually below being cash positive, right? So they are highly dependent on the cash available. I've looked at the recent reports on what is happening with the venture capital in the world, or especially in the Western countries. It seems there are so many funds that are still sitting on huge piles of cash, but these kind of stories as FTX, obviously they don't help, right? Justinas, what do you think? Will the fintech still be a hot topic or wanted for the risk capitals next year, or we will see way smaller deals happening?
I think it will be a hot topic. I think what we see, I think what will change, and obviously this is also in our strategy, we definitely are looking to become more operationally efficient. So I think profitability, especially for the scale-up startups like us, that's an important topic. And we can even look into a few, public companies like Wise. We are publicly traded. I think they are profitable, growing around maybe 20%. So it's not a huge growth, but they are valued much more than some of the non-profitable companies. So I think profitability, when it comes to valuations, next year will be an important factor, like operational efficiency. So I think, I think in that growth and or scale up, and definitely I think every investor will look into profitability. And then I think probably the most difficult one will be that middle one, which is difficult to reach profitability, still need to grow. And I think what colleague mentioned, I think that we see valuations going down, so I think it could be some down rounds and so on. And then I would still believe probably, these recession times will always introduce opportunities for new startups, new growth opportunities. So that could be Web3, that could be blockchain related. I think, for some startups, because we are starting from zero, for them it's a bit easier to raise rounds on, again, sort of year valuations. So yeah, I think that probably that middle ground is going to be the most challenging next year. And I think if you can't get to operational sort of excellence or operational efficiency.
Well, obviously, while talking with Jonia in multiple events, we were looking at the USA evaluation, let's say, ecosystem, if I may say like this, and we were okay, if they do it, maybe they know something more than us. Now, I'm so happy to see that even USA, they actually understood that there's a thing called profits before you invest into something, right? That's why we are very different here on our Central Eastern Europe market. But Jonia, what do you think? What will be happening with capital availability for the fintech startups next year? Should they reevaluate some of their operational investments before they actually go fundraising?
Yeah, I think what Justina said, there's not much to add to that. I think it's right to the point. So there is a lot of capital available, even more capital than there was before. Everyone is just more cautious. So this strange thing happening. We have a lot of money, but no one is investing. What's happening is equalization, I think, with pre-COVID times, where valuations, number of employees were a bit lower, maybe operational efficiency was a bit better. And then really, I think we have forgotten that only in the past 2 years, everything went quite crazy, right? So now the equalization is happening. I think fintechs that are in the later stages, they should not be afraid of either some down rounds or just rounds with lower valuation than they would have otherwise expected. But good companies will keep on raising money. I'm pretty sure about that. It's just that the opportunistic ones will not be getting as much money as last year, and this is good. I think this is just good.
Yeah, it's not enough to have a landing page to fundraise, right?
Exactly. And also, just to add, I think fintech itself, without crypto and Web3, is still very hot and has so much potential that we don't even touch that part. And I think just fintech in itself will be very interesting.
Okay, and to wrap it up, before we jump into the Q&A, maybe I'd like to ask you about something positive for next year. I can ask 2 questions, as I usually do. So maybe what is the most exciting opportunity you see for the next year, and you would like to drag everyone's attention there and say, just think about it, you don't have to start doing it. Or maybe one key change or development in Lithuanian fintech sector that you'd like to see in 2023. Vaida, you're the most positive participant today, so please start.
Thank you for the kind words. So I guess one of the most important things for the ecosystem, at least in Lithuania, will be the fintech guidelines, which Vice Minister today mentioned. I think it will, help to understand the ecosystem, where we're going, and what do I wish. So I wish that we will continue the cooperation with regulator, with Minister of Finance, while trying to find the common, agreements on the points, so that I wish that residents versus non-residents will be solved, and we
Not
will
the case anymore.
We will treat all European Union clients as residents, not just Lithuanians. So I guess if we do this and the settlement, the one I mentioned, then everyone will be drinking champagne.
Yeah, if the talents, people, and the goods can move so easily in European Union, so why can't we go to Spain and take the mortgage? Because it seems like we're not Europeans anymore when we visit bank. Okay, Jone, what would be your last bits for the next year?
I think I was also quite positive, over positive, but I would say there will be money in the market. So
Get ready for that, right?
I mean, be good and operational efficient and have a good team, etc. Then be ready. Yeah.
Justinas?
Yeah, I think what I wish is, this is something I find out recently, and Lucas has mentioned, but that the Center of Financial Literacy, which was established by the Bank of Lithuania, I really want that to succeed on a country level. I think, in Lithuania we have probably in the average, or maybe even below average in the European Union when it comes to financial education. So I think if we want to put a strong foundation for the future fintechs, I think we need to educate the society, we need to educate all our citizens to, be better and better when it comes to finances, personal finances and business finances. So I think, I really wish that to succeed, and again, maybe see some great results next year.
Amen to that. And you know what? We are sitting now in ROCKIT, right? The home of fintech and sustainability, and it's powered by the Swedbank. I've just recently opened Swedbank website. There's so much of interesting content there available. There's so many webinars, everything. Just sit down and listen. You don't have to do anything. And the question is, do people know about it, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And maybe even embedding at school, that could help.
Yeah. Okay. Lucas?
Yeah, just well below the average, I think, as well, with the literacy, but yet we have a lot of money in our bank accounts, and since inflation is growing, so it's probably a very good time to you guys, all the fintech community, to develop some kind of a new services or new engagements to the people. And just I'm very much looking forward into next year's Money 2020 Amsterdam, actually. I figured that this is a kind of a thing that we are glad about this year, but the next year we will definitely rock it even more in terms of numbers and in terms of participation. So very much asking you all that can, and all those who might want to do this, just join. It was a very amazing atmosphere there with the Lithuanian community participating in such huge numbers. So that's my cheers to that.
Okay, thank you for that. And we have so many of questions, but I'll say it out loud, and if someone of you wants to pick it up, so let's try to answer very shortly and at least to one question, okay? The fintech industry in Lithuania heavily rely on skills and talents, and the question is, do you think labor migrants have an influence of the growth of the industry? Vaida, what do you think?
So I do think we work quite a lot on the talents question. The ML Center issued with the Minister of Finance signed the agreement, and we'll start program, I think in January, or probably they even started already. You will be able to upskill your talents on the ML content free of charge through the Darbo Birža. At the same time, we're talking with different universities about the dual diplomas. Economic Innovation Ministry also does that. We work with different universities and provide the speakers, speak ourselves. We have different fintech programs. So I do think that it's good. And then Go Vilnius is changing the law regarding the newcomers to allow them the talents to come to Lithuania with low cost. So I think it's not the problem anymore. The problem is solved and the results will come.
Thank you for that, for this short answer. Lucas, I found a question for you. What concerns you the most in 2023? Funding, regulation, economic environment, or talents?
Why is this for me? I'm just curious.
You're the regulator.
Yeah, but
you can
I
make
mean,
a huge influence on
it's,
all
you
of
know,
them.
all sorts of all those you mentioned has their own downsides. But I would say, for me personally, it's the economical environment, and especially the Russian war on Ukraine. This is the topic. You know, if it would shift in some bad way, so you know, next year we can hope ourselves as much as we want. It will be, you know, it could have a negative impact as well, and also the, you know, inflation and stuff. Yeah, I mean, this kind of a. I'm actually curious how do you affect the investment side, because I would guess this is kind of a, you know, a flag in a way, but haven't heard this from you. So I think that it's only in my mind, right?
No, I think very shortly, inflation affects investment rounds quite a lot, because
Heavily.
you understand that they have to be bigger, but at the same time, you cannot overvalue the company just because you need to give them more money. So then the cap tables get affected.
One more question. Why we still go for and invest into growth potential and do focus more on sustainable profit-driven models and ideas instead? Maybe you, Jonna, can take this.
I think this is how, you know, ecosystems are built. So you have the profitable companies and you have the ones that have to grow fast, actually, by providing this innovation. So you will not avoid that. I wouldn't say that no one is focusing on that, especially right now. And maybe that's kind of the trend or the cliche left from last year. And what we should try to avoid is the year like last year, where only traction is important, but the real numbers, the profit is not. So yeah, I would maybe a little bit disagree with the question, whoever asked.
Okay.
I think maybe, you know, the input is that at least, you know, from US side, the way they say it's like previously the money was free of charge. Yeah, there was no interest rates attached. Now when the interest rates increased, that's becoming more expensive to grow. So it's more about, it's still obviously businesses or startups especially, they still need to grow, but it's more about effectiveness of the growth. And I think this is where investors probably care more about how effective your growth is.
Yes, I see one more question. Do you expect something like FTX to happen more often and pretty soon on the market?
There are rumors that yes.
Okay.
Share the rumors.
Not in this market, I guess.
They are on Twitter, so that's...
Okay. I see very difficult questions, but maybe, guys, about Aida's question, so just jump into the networking part and ask us personally. And maybe a nice softball question to actually close our panel and start going to the networking part is, what's the one thing you all would say to anyone thinking to come to Lithuania to take a part in the fintech industry? Lucas, I start with you.
Regulator.
Amazing. Okay, Justinas.
Ecosystem.
Okay, Jonna. Funding.
Do it.
And Vaida.
Regulated Lithuania, licensed Lithuania.
Okay, thank you so much, dear panelists. Thank you so much for listening. Anything to say for everyone?
Before it didn't happen, I would like to ask the speakers come here for a picture. The photographer, please come here to take a picture. And for everyone else, remember my past video. Please, what verse do you have that?
Picture didn't happen. Ačiū labai. Buvo smagu. Žinok, nieks